Hey everybody, this is Rich from Virginia Beach. It is Thursday, September 4th, 2025 at about 11:30 a.m. Haven't made a video in a while and I was very encouraged to do so this morning when I woke up. Yesterday I watched, as you can see on the video, I watched the Chinese 80th year celebration of the victory over Japan in 1945. The Japanese empire of fascism attacked the Japanese way before the United States was involved in World War II. We didn't get involved until the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor December 7th of 1941. Well, the Japanese attacked China sometime around 1931, 10 years prior to the United States even entering the war. And about 75% of the Imperial Japanese forces were tied up in China, which American history is so apt to point out that the Americans beat the Japanese Empire. Well, if you've got the Chinese fighting 75% of them for 10 years and suffered millions upon millions upon millions of Chinese citizens losing their lives due to the aggression of the fascist Japanese Empire, then should who should be who should be vested with actual victory? Should it be the United States that fought the war for 3 years, 4 years? Or should it be more, towards the Chinese that actually fought them for 10 years and lost millions of people? The Americans forfeited over 100,000 people in World War II, which is unfortunate. I don't think anybody should die ever over this stuff. War is the failure of diplomacy. War and killing people is the absolute epitome of failure of diplomacy. That's all war is. It means people are not intelligent enough or have enough foresight to work out their differences in a civilized manner and they resort to killing each other. That's what war is. It should never happen. This is 2025, and just yesterday, the United States Navy blew up a supposed drug boat off the coast of Venezuela without any due process. They weren't convicted of any crimes. They weren't arrested. They didn't have evidence gained against them or gathered against them. They weren't charged with the crime. They were just summarily executed on the high seas in international waters. That's called piracy. That's called murder. That's called absence of law, both international law and the law of the United States, which you don't commit capital punishment on somebody unless you afford them the due process of law in accordance with the Fifth Amendment of our Constitution. Whether they're American citizens or not, we're not allowed to engage in that activity. I'm not going to belay on that any further, but keep that in mind when, Hegseth is up there and Trump's up there cheering over the loss of life with absent due process of law. That should not happen in a civilized country, yet it happens by the American military on a daily, several times a day, all across the world, in our over 850 bases on other countries, which should not happen. Anyway, I'm getting off track. There's so much I could just go on and on and on about. And I am a veteran of the military of 24 years, and I didn't realize this when I was in the military. I was gung ho. I was ready to do whatever somebody told me to do, and I was going to execute it with the best amount of training that I received and get the mission accomplished. That was my job. I took it very seriously, and I didn't mess around. Now, having the the great advantage of hindsight and looking at all this through a more calculated and and wisdom that comes from age and seeing things and, wanting the law, the law of the land to be the supreme dictator of what you do. You don't break the law. This should be a nation of laws, and we are a nation of lawlessness. So, having the advantage of hindsight, almost 20 years worth of hindsight, I see things in a totally different light that I wish I had seen back when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s when I served in the military. Teens, 20s, 30s, and 40s. But I guess that's why they want young people to fight in the military, because they don't question these things. They don't have the hindsight to look at these things. They don't have, in many cases, critical thoughts at that age. I know I didn't. Hopefully more do. But anyway, I was struck yesterday by watching China's 80th year celebration of the victory over the Empire of Japan. And I was absolutely amazed at the precision, at the absolute determination of every single military man or woman that participated in this parade, the absolute unity these people operated in. This is coming from a guy that I have marched. I have done all these things. I know how difficult it is. It may look easy if you've never been engaged in it, but I'm telling you, it is not easy. It is not easy to even get 3 people to do the exact same thing, let alone thousands of people to do the exact same thing with absolute precision and professionalism. Now, I just want to show you a little bit of this parade. It actually blew my mind.
Please all rise and stand at attention.
鸣礼炮
Fire the gun.
Look at these guys.
Salute is fired to mark the 80 years since the victory of the War of Resistance. The thunder of guns resembles roars of soldiers on the battleground.
They're going down steps. I don't know if you picked that up or not. These guys are marching in absolute precision, going down a flight of steps. I can't emphasize how difficult that is. You don't see these people looking down at their feet. They're obviously very disciplined. They're very well trained. They know what their mission is, and they're executing it flawlessly. It is very, very impressive.
It is also like a song of triumph, sending the time and space to tell our fallen heroes. China today is a great country with majestic mountains and rivers, and its people are full of pride and ambition.
Great changes have taken place over the 80 years from 1945 to 2025. Today, China is safeguarding world peace and contributing to the progress of human civilization with fearless strength and determination.
Absolute precision. That would not be easy to do. I'm sorry. That is absolutely impressive.
Can you see seen from the steadfast gaze of the honor guards. When their patriotism erupts like a volcano, there will be no insurmountable hurdles or unachievable feats for them.
That is so impressive. I can't even begin to explain how impressive that is.
Party of China, the Chinese nation, with a firm grip on its own destiny, is marching forwards.
Now, 3 months ago, back in June, actually it was June 14th of 2025, President Trump wanted to have a parade in Washington, D.C., and he did so. And this is the parade of some of the American military.
Ladies and gentlemen, our parade is officially underway. Up first, internationally renowned, one of the world's finest professional music organizations, the United States Army Band, Berkeley Zone. They are the premier music organization of the U.S. Army, our nation's most senior service, stationed at North Base of Fire Music Hall, Virginia.
Now look at these guys. They're not even straight. They're not in formation. They're just kind of walking along.
Reflects an important useful rule events of national and international significance. They were founded back in 1922 by Army Chief of Staff John J. Pershing. They're led today by Colonel Bruce R. Pulver and Drum Major Ron Moore. Today, Pershing Zone is playing a melody entitled The Army Goes Rolling Along. This was actually written in 1908 by the then Lieutenant Edmund Louis Stitz Gruber, which was a descendant of Franz Gruber, who composed Silent
Look
Night.
at their lines.
They're
They're not even straight. Look at these guys. They're not straight. I don't want to give you the wrong impression that I'm putting down today's military, because I am not. I am not. I'm merely pointing out the stark difference between the military of the Chinese and the military of the United States Empire. And I'm merely pointing out the fact that our military has declined greatly and is nowhere near where it was in the 1990s, when we went over and kicked the hell out of Iraq for some reason. Still haven't quite figured out what the reason was behind that. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. It's already been proven. Nobody seems to understand why. Yet we went over there and killed millions of people. And we had a very strong military, a very strong coalition, and very strong influence around the world to have other people help us out in our endeavors, whatever they may be, and for whatever reasons we may drum up. I also would like to point out, this is not a diss on our American men and women that serve in uniform. It is not in any way meant to be disrespectful to them. They are doing what their leadership expects them to do. My whole problem is with the president on down, through the Joint Chiefs of Staff, through the general staff of the militaries, of all branches of the militaries, who are a bunch of yes men, who don't critically think, who don't analyze a situation and come to their superiors with a proper response to a bullshit order. Which, why are we doing this? What is the goal? What is our mission? What are we supposed to accomplish? What's the end goal of this mission? And if you don't get a good answer, then it's not a good mission. And it's for reasons other than those that benefit the American people. The American people are funding all of this. We're funding all these wars. Our sons, daughters, nephews, husbands, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, in some cases grandparents are dying overseas for this crap that we're doing. So these are some of the people in our military in 2025.
1784, the Union was dubbed the Old Guard by Major General Winfield Scott during a victory parade in Mexico City after the Mexican War. It is the U.S. Army's official ceremonial unit and presidential escort, reflecting year-round tactical training to ensure the highest standards and utmost discipline of its soldiers. The unit routinely represents the U.S. Army and our nation's official ceremonies, sporting events, and their own in the U.S. Army's own Twilight Tattoo. The Old Guard also maintains 24-hour vigil while also conducting funeral services honoring our latest stars of the way.
Look at these guys. They're just kind of walking along. They're not really marching. Look, their heads are bobbling all over the place. They're not uniform. Look at these guys looking all around. Look at this guy. He's fat. Look, they're not even in unison. Look at their heads bobbling at different times. Here's the Chinese. Everybody in unison.
Of the people's heroes to the national flagpole. And from the great victory to the great rejuvenation. The Chinese nation has walked a long way of innumerable
Absolute unison. They're walking at an angle.
This is a road to national
And they're all doing it
independence,
exactly
to
the
people's
same.
liberation. It is also a road to national dignity, prosperity, and strength. And a road to Chinese
I can't tell you how
modernization
impressive
and a
that
global
is.
community with a shared future.
That is absolutely impressive.
The national anthem, March of the Volunteers, which was
Look how uniform and precise everything is.
From Court Cavazos, Texas, home of legends, the 1st Cavalry Division rides with pride. Born from the thunder of horse cavalry traditions of the Civil War, the 1st team forged its reputation on the front lines of history. They stormed Manila with the flying column, charged into Pyongyang as the first to breach the line and face the brutal crucible of Ia Drang, the first of 13 named
Look, you got some of them waving, some of them not waving.
campaigns in Vietnam where they proved their mettle. Today, that same warrior spirit lives on. You'll know the name and you'll know the...
Their guns aren't in order. Those guys are just walking. They don't even look like they want to be there. Some of them have their chin straps on, some of them don't. Look at their rows, they're not all straight. Look at that. Look at those rows. I got female right here, males and females together. Look at Pete Hegseth over here, Secretary of Defense. Look at this big guy right here. He's probably about 45 pounds overweight. These guys are just walking. They're not even in step. Look at that. That's an embarrassment.
The foot formations are now adjusting their lines. Vehicles and armaments are lining up. They will soon march to the Tiananmen rostrum.
That's impressive. Look at them, every one of them.
The People's Liberation Army is known as the PLA. In 1927, its frontrunners were founded by the Communist Party of China. It was originally called the Chinese Workers and Peasants Red Army. This year marks the 98th anniversary of the founding of the PLA.
All of them are in step. Absolute precision. I can't begin to tell you how
During the
difficult that
14-year-long War of
is.
Resistance, under the leadership of the Communist Party of China.
Watch them peel off here.
And the new Fourth Army.
Watch how they do
the
this.
Chinese people
With
defeated
precision.
The Japanese forces and enveloped
Still staying in step.
the invaders. They asserted their role in the battlefields and achieved victory in the war for national liberation.
Since the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949, the PLA has also undertaken
Absolute precision.
national defense, socialist construction, while transforming itself into more.
Not one soldier is out of step.
Alongside the latest generation of conventional weapons, the parade will feature unmanned intelligence systems, underwater combat units, cyber and electronic forces, and hypersonic weapons, highlighting the PLA's growing capacity to harness emerging technologies, adapt to the evolving character of warfare, and prevail in future conflicts.
Just as China's weaponry has seen remarkable evolution over the years, the Chinese military has also continuously strengthened itself by
Perfectly in
reinforcing
unison.
the supremacy of political guidance and advancing comprehensive reforms.
China pursues a national defense policy that is defensive in nature. China will never seek hegemony, expansion, or spheres of influence.
Even their doors close at the exact same time.
Today, the PLA protects China
That
and
is
its people while making
very, very
significant
impressive.
contributions to safeguarding world peace. It is the largest contributing country for peacekeepers among the permanent members of the UN Security Council.
There's the M1A1 Abrams, were designed back 50 years ago. These guys are not uniform at all. They're all doing something different. There you go. There's our guys walking. Not even in a straight line. This is embarrassing. They're all different heights. They're not the same height. UH-1 Huey. Look at them, they're all just all over the place. This one's wandering all over the place. This is Vietnam era aircraft. They're just kind of whatever formation they want to be in. UH-1 Iroquois. Washington Monument.
Defense and the armed forces to achieve the centenary
Back to
goal
China.
of strengthening the PLA by 2027, realize the modernization of national defense and the armed forces by 2035, and fully build the military into a world-class one by 2050.
The centenary objectives state that by 2027, China will accelerate the integrated development of mechanization, informationization, and intelligentization, accelerate the modernization of military theory, organizational reforms, personnel,
All new
weaponry,
equipment.
and prioritize quality and efficiency to enhance operational efficiency of the military system, and optimize the utilization of defense resources and promote the synchronized growth
Absolute
of defense
precision.
economic strengths.
That is not an easy thing to accomplish, especially with that many people and that much equipment. Absolute uniformity. They're all holding their weapons at the same exact angle. They were all on a height line, so they all look like they're the same height when really they're not. That's extremely impressive. You notice they all look like they're the same height, but if you really notice, you got the tall ones in the front, and it gradually goes down to the shortest ones in the back. That's how it's supposed to be done. That's how we did it in the Navy in boot camp. That's why we all looked the same height, but we really weren't. That's called precision and uniformity. I didn't see that in the American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that were marching along. I didn't see it. They're all different. They're not uniform. They didn't do it properly. It looks sloppy, and they're not synchronized. Look at these guys. They're not even marching in order. Look at that. They're all looking around, not paying attention. They're not in step. Their lines are out of order. Look at these guys. They're out of step. Yeah, they look real happy, enthused. They're all looking around. We called that rubbernecking in the Navy. These guys look a little better. Still got them looking around. The Gulf War, yeah, what were we over there for? Anybody figure that out? I'd like to know. Look at these guys. They're all on different steps. Their heads are bouncing at different times. Look at that. That's an embarrassment right there, folks. Look at these guys. They're all looking around, looking at the crowd. They're not disciplined. They're not uniform. They're not really even marching. They're just walking. There's some more guys walking. Look at them. They're all out of step. Look at that. Look at their rows. That's embarrassing. I could go on and on, but I'm not going to. I could go on and on. I don't really want to. I think what was demonstrated here pretty much gets the point across. And again, I'm not trying to put down anybody. I'm not trying to denigrate the men and women in uniform in the United States military. That's not my goal. I still respect those people. They're doing what they're expected to do. The problem is the expectations aren't very high these days. And it's kind of embarrassing to say, you know, I was part of that organization, but it was a lot different back then. And my heart goes out to the men and women that have to follow orders of some of these clowns that are in charge. And it's embarrassing. Doesn't benefit the American people. It doesn't benefit me. I'm relegated to the civilian sector now. It doesn't benefit me. My dollar is not worth as much as it was back when I retired in 2006. The dollar's worth a fraction of what it used to be. Nowadays, you got 20 and 30-year-olds still living with their parents because they can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford to rent an apartment. They can't afford to rent a house. You know, they're driving hand-me-down cars instead of out there with the good job, making good money, living out on their own, starting their own family, being a pillar of society. That's a thing of the past because reckless decisions that is taking our country down the wrong path. And I really wish that we could change that. Unfortunately, we haven't, and I would like to see that change. So, anyway, this has been about 36 minutes now, and I just want to wish everybody a happy fall. Stay in touch with your loved ones, be good to one another, and follow the rule of law. That's all anybody can ever ask of anybody else, and respect your neighbor. Anyway, love y'all. Talk to you soon. Peace. Well, in case anybody hasn't figured out, what I'm trying to get at is I would not be so inclined to encourage and listen to the mainstream media that encourages us to engage in battle with a peer or a near peer nation. That is not going to turn out well. We are not the special nation as a lot of pundits like to portray on the mainstream media. America is a very good nation. We are a nation of very, very good, generous, accepting people. However, it's become more and more apparent to me and many, many others, not just me, that the elites and the government that somehow thinks that they control the people, which they don't. The people created the government. That which we created does not control the creator. We are the creators of the government. It was created by the people. The government is supposed to work for we the people. We the people have a responsibility to ensure that that happens. It all falls on us, the people. It's not we should go begging the government to help us. We don't need help. We are self-sufficient. We govern ourselves. We take care of ourselves. The government is there to take care of a limited amount of things that we dictated that they take care of. They're supposed to go make treaties, good treaties with other nations that benefit we the people in trade, in commerce. Our government officials are supposed to obey the Constitution, which is the supreme rule of the land. Okay? Not the United States Code, not the state's individual codes. They are not the supreme law of the land. The Constitution is. That's why every one of them take an oath. All federal agents and employees that are in a position of any sort of authority take an oath to the Constitution. They take an oath to the people to support the Constitution because the Constitution was written by the people. That's the governing document that bestows certain powers and limited powers to the government. I just had a conversation the other day with my daughter. It's a good conversation. We have a lot of good conversations. And I keep re-emphasizing the fact that we don't need to ask the government permission to do things. When we do, that's when we get ourselves in a bind. Now we have to meet all the requirements that the government imposes. Like, for example, we were talking about daycare or child care. Those terms are defined in each one of the state's statutes, and they're defined in the federal United States Code. What a daycare facility is. It will tell you what it is. It's licensed through whatever government agency to conduct that business. That's all done through the Commerce Clause of the United States. We don't have to ask their permission to do things. We can trade our skills, our labor, for compensation. If we want to watch kids out of our house and the parents come in and they have an interview with the people, you don't need a license. You don't need permission from the government to do that. If you own your home, and this is just an example. This is what we talked about yesterday, but it's something to think about. This applies to a lot of different things. You don't need to ask the government's permission to do things. We are the people. We are in charge. We're in charge of the government. We are not supposed to be asking permission from the government to do that which we are already not prohibited from doing. If we're not prohibited by the Constitution, which the Constitution doesn't put prohibitions on the people, it puts prohibitions on government agents of the government agencies that we've created through the Constitution. That's where everybody gets this wrong. That's where everybody gets this totally wrong. We don't ask permission. If you want to put an extension on your house, for an example, a licensed and bonded and insured contractor might require that you get a permit because he's required to have those things because of his license, his permission that was granted by the government. Now he has to jump through hoops. He has to ensure that the people that own the property get permits. That's part of his requirement for getting permission to do business. It all has to do with the license that he asked for, that he applied for, and he agreed to abide by all the terms and conditions of that license. For example, I had a driveway put in. I told the contractor I am not getting a permit. I don't need permission to do anything on my property. I had a patio put in. The same contractor. I am not pulling a permit. I am not asking permission to do that on my land, which I can do. They didn't have a problem with it. They're going, okay, it's your property. They didn't have a problem with it. They built my driveway, my sidewalk, my back patio. They did an excellent job. To put on a roof, you don't need a permit. To build an addition on your house, you don't need permission from the government to do that. It's private property. You don't need permission. You don't need permission to go out and travel the roads that we paid for. Our tax dollars paid for. The government doesn't pay for anything. The people do. The government doesn't create money. They take it from us. That's part of the problem. We don't need to ask the government's permission to do anything. If we're lawfully allowed to do something like travel, I don't need a driver's license to go out and travel around. I just recently went out and got a driver's license. For 6 years. I didn't have 6.5 years. I did not have a driver's license. I went to my local DMV and I surrendered it. When I read the codes and realized I'm not required to have this, I turned it in and surrendered a perfect valid license. I did have a difficulty with it. One time I went to rent a car and I was denied. I had to put the car back on the lot. I couldn't drive it off the lot because they required a driver's license. Even though I'm not required to have one, they required it because of their policy, because they're operating via permission or a license or some type of a permit that the government gave them, which made them liable to certain policies, practice, and procedure, or whatever they dictate. It's like a child care facility. If you're a licensed child care facility, and by the application of that license, you agree to abide by all the terms and conditions the government imposes on daycare or child care facilities, which is you got to have public access. You got to have all kinds of stuff. Like you got to have a handicap ramp. You got to have so many sinks. You got to have so many sanitation stations. You got to have so many toilets. You got to have so many teachers or minders per student. They dictate all that. You can only watch so many. You can only operate, certain times during the day or certain days during the week. Who the hell wants to be told what they can do and what they can't do? That's the whole idea. That's the premise everybody needs to be getting out of. And part of this whole thing is because I keep going on these tangents. I've got so much in my brain I want to get out. I think people would really benefit from it. But the point of this whole video and the comparison between our military and, for an example, the Chinese military is the amount of discipline difference between the two. And to think that our government and some of the government minders that dictate what the government do, some call them the deep state, some call them the forever government, the bureaucrats that aren't elected, they're government employees that were hired on and they stay there forever because they're not elected by the people. Well, they start dictating what the policies are going to be and they never change. The Biden policy, the Trump policy before Biden, the Obama policy before Trump's first term, they were all the same. You have two sides of the same coin. They all have the same policies. It doesn't change. They just have different flavors. But, the goal of 2030 is net zero, zero emissions. That's going to kill our economy. Doesn't anybody understand that? Yeah, I think solar is okay. I think wind energy is okay. Geothermal energy is okay. Sure, they should all be explored. They shouldn't be mandated. They shouldn't be subsidized by the government. If they're a good idea, why is the taxpayers funding it? That's redistribution of wealth. That's taken from those that may not have much and giving it to those that the government thinks should have it. That's just like all of our welfare policies. That's taken from some and given to others. Shouldn't happen in America. It's not in the Constitution. It's not authorized. Shouldn't happen. And we shouldn't be going to war with a near peer, which China is. In fact, I'd call them a peer instead of a near peer. They're a very capable country. They don't have any inclinations of dominating anybody in the world. They want to create trade and commerce that benefit their people. I wish our government would do that. It's the same with the Russian government. They don't want to conquer Ukraine. They didn't want this war with Ukraine. They've been telling Ukraine for the last 10 years to stop picking on the Russian-speaking people that live within Ukraine. Just stop it. Stop, bombing and shelling these people that live in the Donbass, that speak Russian. They're ostensibly Russian citizens. They have Russian passports. They're integrated with the Ukrainian society. The Ukrainian constitution recognized that they are Russian territories. They're autonomous. Until 2014, when Victoria Nuland come in and the United States government, through its proxies, orchestrated a coup and threw out the democratically elected president that didn't do what the United States wanted it to do and allow NATO to expand into their borders. They had a coup and kicked out and put in Yanukovych, who was an American puppet, who would just say, open the door, allow NATO to come in, right on Russia's doorstep. Do you think we would allow that in Mexico for the old Warsaw Pact, had it not disintegrated, to, arm the Mexican government with all of these Russian and Chinese missiles and tanks and equipment and everything to just be on our border? Hell no, we wouldn't put up with that. What are we doing over in Taiwan? Taiwan is a province of China. Why are we stirring up shit with these people? We should be doing trade. We should be doing business that benefit us, the American people, that help bring our dollar back up to maintain value instead of plummeting its value and, increasing inflation, which is basically taxing the people. When you devalue its currency, you're putting a tax on every citizen that earns that currency. It has less power. You're taking the labor from the people. All these wars, all these bases we have on all these different countries, they should be closed down and that land should be given back to the host country. We don't need to be there. We don't have Soviet, combat soldiers crawling up on our beaches in Florida or California or Maine or Oregon. We're not being invaded. The Russians don't want to invade us. They got a big enough country. Jesus, they have 11 time zones. They have all kinds of ethnic people in Russia, and they're trying to take care of all of them. They don't need to conquer they don't need to conquer Ukraine, for God's sakes. They didn't even want to be there till NATO pushed itself on the Russian border. Look into it. I'm not just making this up. They didn't want to invade Ukraine. They didn't want to have to do that. But now that they did, they're doing it right, and they're kicking the shit out of the Ukrainians, as they should. They are a threat, thanks to America and NATO and all of its lapdogs over in Europe that does whatever the United States tells them to do. What an embarrassment. We went from a nation that was respected around the world to a nation that is deplored around the world. All you got to do is look at BRICS. Look at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Look at all these new institutions that are starting up. They don't need us. They don't need America. They don't need the bully to tell them who they can trade with, whose oil they can buy, whose oil they can't buy, whose goods you can buy, whose you can sell to. They don't want somebody being a dictator to what they do. These are all sovereign countries. They can do whatever the hell they want that benefits their people. I'm not even going to get into Israel. That's such a blemish, a scar on the face of humanity. I'm not even going to get into it. I just will say one thing about Israel. They are and never have been our ally. I don't care what Lindsey Graham says. You good people from South Carolina, why do you keep re-electing this fool? This idiot, this imbecile that's raking in millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars of personal wealth through AIPAC and all the other Zionist funding mechanisms so he can be a mouthpiece for them. He should be a mouthpiece for the South Carolinians. You're the ones that put him in office. You should be the ones to take him out. He is not representing you. He is not representing any of the American people. He is personally making his family very, very wealthy by not doing what you want him to do and doing what others pay him very handsomely to do. You might want to look into Lindsey Graham and Blumenthal and all these other clowns, these Zionist supporters, these supposed Christian Zionists. Look into them. I say that if anybody in our government holds a dual passport, something other than an American passport, they should have their asses kicked out of government permanently. Revoke whatever security clearance they may have or had, and kick them out of government service permanently. You can only have allegiance to one country. You should only ever have an American passport and be in the federal, in the government at all. Your loyalty should be to the people that live here, the people that help put you in office, and that's it. Not Israel, not any of this other crap. Think of the USS Liberty. Israel bombed the shit out of the USS Liberty in 1967, trying to get us involved in their war with Egypt, of all things. Now they're getting us into their war with Iran, of all things. And stupidly enough, Trump went along with it and supposedly dropped some bunker busters on 3 different nuclear enrichment sites in Iran. That didn't need to happen. Iran's not crawling up on our shores, invading America. They're not even threatening us. They retaliate against Israel because Israel tries to do a decapitation strike on them. We don't like Iran because they had a revolution in the 50s and overthrew the Shah. Got rid of our puppet government that allowed us to steal their oil. They became a sovereign nation again when they had a revolution and threw the Shah out on his ass. And they became a sovereign country again, sold their own oil to benefit their own people, which they should do. America didn't like that. The Empire of America didn't like that. We want to exploit these people. And if you don't allow us to exploit you, we're going to overthrow your government. We're going to organize a coup through non-governmental organizations, these quasi-government organizations. USAID was a big one. That was defunded. Now it's just funded through the State Department. That's all really happened. They just moved the chains around. There's all kinds of these organizations out there. So things aren't what they look, and if you're still watching the mainstream media, that's why you don't completely understand what's going on. They are mouthpieces for the people, the globalists that want America to maintain hegemony and be the world's police station and tell everybody else what to do, when we should not be doing that. The only thing our government should be doing is making sound decisions that benefit us, the people. Not hurts us, not puts our kids in danger in the military or any of that crap. So it's time to wise up, America. Turn off the mainstream media. You can find a lot of good stuff on YouTube and other platforms. The mainstream media is not a good platform for you to use. It's just not. They're part of the problem. They're a huge part of the problem. And if you keep watching them and believing what they're telling you, you're never going to come to terms with the truth. You're going to constantly be frustrated. You're going to be scared because that's one of their tactics. Scaring people is a very good motivational thing. That's like COVID. They wanted to scare everybody. And they scared a lot of people. They didn't scare me. I didn't wear a mask. I didn't get vaccinated. I didn't stay home. I didn't follow any government orders because they don't have authority over the people. The government only has authority over that which they create, which are all these agents, agencies, bureaus, organizations that they've created. They have control over them. The people created the government. We have control of the government. And we should keep a better eye on it because it's not doing anything that benefits the American people. So, just wanted to get that out there. Y'all have a good day. Enjoy this wonderful fall weather. Hopefully we don't get any hurricanes this year. And peace.